From Studio 1A in Tampa, Florida, comes a talk show that really feels your pain and tells you like it is. We love America and all that freedom-loving Americans want to protect. Live from coast to coast and on your radio, it's For the People with Keith Allen.
We'll help you survive this thing called life. We're for the people. Whatever your source of stress or strife, for the people is there.
Well, hello, Mr. and Mrs. America. I am Keith Allen and proudly welcoming you to this Thursday's edition of For the People for the June the 8th, 2017, and all eyes on former FBI Director James Comey, Capitol Hill, getting a grilling. And one of the recent statements that came across the wire just now and on the television is that the Trump administration chose to defame me. James Comey feeling a bit sorry that he got fired, but served always at the pleasure of the president. A lot has been said today, and I want to give you a little flavor of what's going on, like I usually do with some sound clips and all that. But there was a release of the opening statements of what Comey was going to say. One of the big headlines today was part of that, saying that he felt a little odd, felt a little peculiar, I'm paraphrasing, with Donald Trump with the meetings, basically asking for, his allegiance. Can I depend on you? Are you going to stay with me? But there was this advance to today's testimony that went out to all the networks. And I should say this and preface this. It does not provide evidence that President Trump committed or obstructed any kind of justice or any crime. It just doesn't. With all the lawyers that I've spoken with or I've listened to or those that have studied all the way back to, Watergate and all of this stuff, doesn't show this at all, again, which is very critical. Is there a smoking gun? We'll be talking about that and a lot more. Opening statements right now, Chairman Burr from a little while ago. Here we go.
Director Comey, I appreciate your willingness to appear before the committee today, and more importantly, I thank you for your dedicated service and leadership to the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Your appearance today speaks to the trust we have built over the years, and I'm looking forward to a very open and candid discussion today. I'd like to remind my colleagues that we will reconvene in closed session at 1 p.m. today, and I ask that you reserve for that venue any questions that might get into classified information. The director has been very gracious with his time, but the vice chairman and I have worked out a very specific timeline for his commitment to be on the Hill, so we will do everything we can to meet that agreement. The Senate Select Committee on Intelligence exists to certify for the other 85 members of the United States Senate and the American people that the intelligence community is operating lawfully and has the necessary authorities and tools to accomplish its mission and keep America safe. Part of our mission, beyond the oversight we continue to provide to the intelligence community and its activities, is to investigate Russian interference in the 2016 U.S. elections. The committee's work continues. This hearing represents part of that effort. Jim, allegations have been swirling in the press for the last several weeks, and today's your opportunity to set the record straight. Yesterday, I read with interest your statement for the record, and I think it provides some helpful details surrounding your interactions with the president. It clearly lays out your understanding of those discussions, actions you took following each conversation, and your state of mind. I very much appreciate your candor. I think it's helpful as we work through to determine the ultimate truth behind possible Russian interference in the 2016 elections. Your statement also provides texture and context to your interactions with the president from your vantage point and outlines a strained relationship. The American people need to hear your side of the story, just as they need to hear the president's descriptions of events. These interactions also highlight the importance of the committee's ongoing investigation. Our experienced staff is interviewing all relevant parties and some of the most sensitive intelligence in our country's possession. We will establish the facts, separate from rampant speculation, and lay them out for the American people to make their own judgment. Only then will we, as a nation, be able to move forward and to put this episode to rest. There are several outstanding issues not addressed in your statement that I hope you'll clear up for the American people today. Did the President's request for loyalty, your impression that the one-on-one dinner of January 27th sort of patronage relationship, or his March 30th phone alter your approach of the FBI's investigation into General Flynn or the broader investigation into Russia and possible links to the campaign? In your opinion, did potential Russian efforts to establish links with individuals in the Trump orbit rise to the level we could define as collusion, or was it a counterintelligence concern? There's been a significant public speculation about your decision-making related to the Clinton email investigation. Why did you decide to publicly announce FBI's recommendations that the Department of Justice not pursue criminal charges? You have described it as a choice between a bad decision and a worse decision. The American people need to understand the facts behind your action. This committee is uniquely suited to investigate Russia's interference in the 2016 elections. We also have a unified bipartisan approach to what is a highly charged partisan issue. Russian activities during 2016 election may have been aimed at one party's candidate, but as my colleague Senator Rubio says frequently, in 2018 and 2020, it could be aimed at anyone, at home or abroad. My colleague Senator Warner and I have worked to stay in lockstep on this investigation. We've had our differences on approach at times, but I've constantly stressed that we need to be a team, and I think Senator Warner agrees with me. We must keep these questions above politics and partisanship. It's too important to be tainted by anyone trying to score political points.
Well, the bottom line is, thanks, Chairman Burr, but it's all politics. It's all that. They can play Boy Scouts. The FBI can play Boy Scouts at the same time, but there's new revelations about what Republicans already knew about Democrats and Loretta Lynch and what she did about trying to undermine an investigation going on with the Clinton emails in that probe. But we'll get there a little bit later on. The Comey statement suggests that one reason that the president fired him was because of his refusal or failure to publicly announce that the FBI was not investigating him personally. Now, Trump repeatedly told Comey to get that fact out, and the fact of the matter is, folks, he did not. And if that's true, it's certainly not an obstruction of justice. Nor is it obstruction of justice to ask for loyalty from the director of the FBI, who responded, "You will get that honest loyalty from me." What is so bad about asking for loyalty? That's something that Trump has always asked anybody that's worked for him, that's done business with him. That's just what it is. Honest loyalty. Great. But don't be disloyal and don't be making things up. That's one thing that he didn't want. He just wanted to make sure he had his loyalty. There's people that have agendas in Washington, not a surprise. James Comey, the FBI, these are human beings. And for whatever reason, there's politics and there's grandstanding that goes on. And make no mistake about it, folks. James Comey loves the spotlight, loves to be on television, enjoys the moment. And though he's not the director of the FBI, he will have plenty of opportunities to speak. And he'll have another job, plain and simple. Again, I go back on what I said yesterday. If you listen to yesterday's show, there is nothing, I repeat, nothing in today's testimony and questioning with senators across the board that shows that Donald Trump did anything wrong. And as a matter of fact, the firing of James Comey, he's not very happy about. I don't think any director would be thrilled about. But there's been turmoil inside the FBI. The FBI, they do a lot of good things, and we're very grateful for the FBI. But the FBI did get political. You can just see how he got political with this whole thing. And there's no director in history that took it so far for a presidential nominee, a former Secretary of State, and did what he did. He far overreached, and he enjoyed every moment of it. And then at the last moment, for whatever reason, he didn't cook Hillary Clinton, which he had plenty of evidence to do. Why didn't he? It's a very, very good question. So if there's a smoking gun, there it is. Here's Vice Chairman Warner with his question.
Mr. Comey, thank you for agreeing to come testify as part of this committee's investigation into Russia. I realize that this hearing has been obviously the focus of a lot of Washington in the last few days. But the truth is, many Americans who may be tuning in today probably haven't focused on every twist and turn of the investigation. So I'd like to briefly describe, at least from this senator's standpoint, what we already know and what we're still investigating. To be clear, this investigation is not about relitigating the election. It's not about who won or lost, and it sure as heck is not about Democrats versus Republicans. We're here because a foreign adversary attacked us right here at home. Simple. Not by guns or missiles, but by foreign operatives seeking to hijack our most important democratic process, our presidential election. Russian spies engaged in a series of online cyber raids and a broad campaign of disinformation, all ultimately aimed at sowing chaos to undermine public faith in our process, in our leadership, and ultimately in ourselves. And that's not just this senator's opinion. It is the unanimous determination of the entire U.S. intelligence community. So we must find out the full story. What the Russians did, and candidly, as some other colleagues have mentioned, why they were so successful. And more importantly, we must determine the necessary steps to take to protect our democracy and ensure they can't do it again. Chairman mentioned elections in 2018 and 2020. In my home state of Virginia, we have elections this year in 2017. Simply put, we cannot let anything or anyone prevent us from getting to the bottom of this. Now, Mr. Comey, let me say at the outset, we haven't always agreed on every issue. In fact, I've occasionally questioned some of the actions you've taken. But I've never had any reason to question your integrity, your expertise, or your intelligence. You've been a straight shooter with this committee and have been willing to speak truth to power, even at the risk of your own career, which makes the way in which you were fired by the president ultimately shocking. Recall, we began this entire process with the president and his staff first denying that the Russians were ever involved and then falsely claiming that no one from his team was ever in touch with any Russians. We know that's just not the truth. Numerous Trump associates had undisclosed contacts with Russians before and after the election, including the president's attorney general, his former national security advisor, and his current senior advisor, Mr. Kushner. That doesn't even begin to count the host of additional campaign associates and advisors who've also been caught up in this massive web. We saw Mr. Trump's campaign manager, Mr. Manafort, forced to step down over ties to Russian-backed entities. The national security advisor, General Flynn, had to resign over his lies about engagements with the Russians. And we saw the candidate himself express an odd and unexplained affection for the Russian dictator